The problem with Bernie Sanders is that he has the exact same message he had 4 years ago.
Markos Attacks was on MSNBC with Chuck Todd to, of course, bash Bernie Sanders. That's what this guy does. I mean, he's the founder of the Daily Kos, a website that, 15 years ago may have been a place that people went to read about left-wing politics or liberal politics. Not anymore. I don't know anybody on the left that reads or sources or goes to the Daily Kos. I mean, it's completely fell off the face of the earth. So if people still go there, then it's because Markos appears on MSNBC. That is the only reason. So maybe people in the center read the website, but nobody I know that's actually on the left reads this site. And the reason I'm telling you this is because Chuck Todd presents Markos as a representative of left-wing politics, which is just completely absurd. So watch this clip where he's asked about Bernie Sanders.
What do you make of the Bernie Sanders observation by Doug Thornell? Has Warren basically eclipsed Sanders in your world of sort of progressive, fundamental economic change politics?
Yeah, absolutely. The problem with Bernie Sanders is that he has the exact same message he had 4 years ago. And that message didn't get him to victory 4 years ago. Not sure why he's not trying to calibrate that, particularly in this field. And one of the arguments his supporters make and the campaign is making too is that everybody is, quote, stealing his message, as though maybe Bernie invented liberalism. But point aside, Bernie deserves a lot of credit for mainstreaming a lot of those ideas. But he has done nothing to build his own base of support. And why stick with Bernie, who's as divisive as he is, when there are more appealing, inclusive candidates in the field, and there's a bunch to choose from?
Yeah. Total bullshit. Everything said there. Total bullshit. So let me go through some of this. Chuck Todd starts this conversation, again, as I said, representing or showcasing Markos as a representative of progressive politics, saying, oh, how is Bernie playing in your world of progressive politics? Markos does not represent us. Markos is not progressive. He's not left-wing. He is a representative of corporate Democrats. That's what he is. I mean, I'm going to get to that in a minute here of why Markos is pushing these attacks on Bernie Sanders. But so first of all, let's just dispel the idea that Markos is part of the left. He's not. And on top of that, okay, there's a lot really to go over here. But Markos kind of refers to Bernie as a liberal. I mean, taking a shot at him saying there how, oh, Bernie's acting like, he invented liberal politics. Bernie's not liberal. He is left-wing. Liberal, in my mind, is another word for neoliberal politics. This centrist politics, this moderate politics, these corporate Democrats representing representing the wealthy and massive corporations. That's what liberal politics is. Bernie Sanders is not liberal. He is a social democrat, or as he calls himself, a democratic socialist. That's what Bernie is. He's not liberal. But moving on from there, I just want to share this tweet from Mika Utrecht. He's the managing editor of a Jacobin, a website that people on the left actually read. So he tweets out, why does Chuck Todd have Markos on as some kind of representative of the American left today? He's not, as you see in this clip, where his role is actually to punch left. He's far to the right of where the real left-wing energy in American politics is. Bring an actual socialist on. So that sums it up. This is somebody, Mika Utrecht, who's an actual leftist. Markos is not. But moving on from that, let's go to his arguments here. So Markos says, why stick with Bernie, divisive as he is? Divisive. Bernie Sanders. Anytime somebody says this, and people say this a lot on television, they never back it up with anything. They don't explain how. Why is he divisive? Why aren't you being divisive when you attack the left, when you attack Bernie Sanders, when you attack somebody who supports policies and pushes policies forward like Medicare for all, like tuition-free public college, like ending American interventionism abroad, like raising taxes on the wealthy and large corporations, like wanting to raise wages to $15 an hour? Why aren't you somebody that's divisive? All of those policies I just listed are supported by the vast majority of Democrats. And also, Many of them are supported by the majority of people in America, regardless of their political persuasion. So this idea that Bernie is divisive when he is actually with the American people on the policies and you are not, and you're fighting against that, who's the actual divisive one here? This is, I mean, I'm going to go to this image here. This is the Nancy Pelosi roses guy. This is the guy that bought, I don't even know what the number is, but thousands of roses for Nancy Pelosi for I don't know what. I mean, this is somebody who is a total status quo politician. The entire party and the base of the party want to see more pressure put on Donald Trump and move for impeachment hearings. But you have Nancy Pelosi stopping that. This is who Markos supports. Markos supports the guy that is actually allowing Donald Trump to continue what he is doing, allowing somebody to break the law, allowing the president to break the law and get away with it. That's what Markos supports. I mean, the idea that this guy is put on television to represent the left is just batshit crazy. But moving on from that, his other argument here, maybe the dumbest one of all of them. Bernie has the exact same message as 4 years ago. This is somehow supposed to be an attack. Bernie is too consistent. Oh, why is Bernie so consistent? We're so used to politicians just changing their mind, just listening to what people are saying and then pretending that they also represent those positions. Meanwhile, you have Bernie Sanders here just saying the same things 4 years ago, like, like somebody that actually cares about these issues. I mean, it's hilarious that this is used as an attack. Bernie Sanders is consistent, and it's not just 4 years ago. It's, as Yusuf Mayaner points out here, this is wrong because Sanders has had the same message for 50 years, not 4. Imagine thinking lifelong consistency in fighting against economic inequality is a bad thing. So this is the issue here. Bernie Sanders is incredibly consistent, yet they're construing that as a negative. The way that they're reporting on politics here on MSNBC is looking at this like sports. They're thinking, oh, why isn't Bernie using a different defensive strategy or different offensive strategy than last time? I mean, it didn't work last time, so why isn't he changing his strategy depending on, what's happening? Bernie Sanders is fighting for people. He actually cares about the issues. He actually cares about people. He actually cares to push back against the powerful. That's why his message is the same. He's had the same message for decades. This is who Bernie Sanders is. He's not just a typical politician. He actually cares about these issues. That is a plus. That is not a minus. So as Bernie tweets out here, my skeptics often accuse me of being boring, of hammering the same themes. They're probably right. It's never made sense to me that a few people have incredible wealth and power while most have none. Should we ever achieve justice, I promise I'll write some new speeches. So there you go. Bernie is consistent because he actually cares to change things. Another attack here. Why stick with Bernie? So I kind of touched on this earlier. Yeah, why stick with Bernie as divisive as he is? So, I mean, the real reason why Bernie has so much support, I hope, is obvious, but it's apparently not obvious to people on television because they're trying to push a certain narrative. Bernie has and continues to have all the support for a variety of reasons. For one, he supports the policies that I listed, including many more. But on top of that, people know they can trust him because he's been consistent for as long as he has. He's been fighting for people for as long as he has. People know they can actually trust Bernie on these issues. And on top of that, they know they can trust him because he's only taking money from individual donors. He's not having private fundraisers with a special interest. He's not taking corporate money. He's only taking money from individual donors. So you know he cannot be bought off or paid off by anybody else. And on top of all that, he has this idea of a political revolution, of understanding that if you actually want to change things, if you actually want to strip power away from the people that currently have it, from all the concentrated power and wealth at the top, then you need a people-powered movement. You need people from outside of Congress putting pressure on the politicians in Washington to actually get things done. He understands that. So he has the strategy in addition to having the correct policies. This is why Bernie Sanders has as much support as he does. I mean, looking after the first debate, who has the highest favorability ratings? So we take a look at the first debate where you had Elizabeth Warren. She has the highest right there in the first debate with 73% support now. But you go to the second debate, Bernie Sanders has the highest favorability rating, 75.4%. I mean, this is clear. Bernie Sanders has support, and his support actually grew after that first debate. So I did a whole breakdown on that debate. I didn't know if Bernie's support would, I figured it would maintain. I mean, it sort of kind of did. I mean, once you get to in the mid 70s here, it's hard to grow your support or grow your favorability any further. But he did. Meanwhile, Biden went down. So it's showing you when Bernie's hammering the consistent message as he did in that debate, he's still able to grow his support. Now, the attacks that Markos is launching on Bernie Sanders are obviously BS. So why is Markos doing them? Here's why. This tweet from contributing writer to The Guardian, Michael Senato, tweets out, Markos stands to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars in consulting / Coast media fees if Bernie wins the nomination. That's it. It's about money. It's about his own power. Markos is within those powerful circles in Washington. He is respected by people like Chuck Todd. So if Markos loses out here, if he bets on the wrong horse, if he bets on somebody, or if you have someone like Bernie Sanders come into power that is willing to challenge the existing power structures, including the existing consultant class, of which Markos is a part of, then Markos stands to lose a lot of power and money. That's what this is actually about. Markos is a fraud. He is not a leftist. He is simply there to push a particular narrative that involves pushing back against anybody that is challenging his power and his wealth and anybody in his circles and their power and their wealth. So that is why Markos is on television, essentially trying to create this phony narrative around Bernie Sanders that he is not popular among the left, which is so completely BS if you look at any number. But that's why he's on television, to push this narrative, to trick people into thinking that Bernie is not actually the candidate of the left, to try and suppress support for him from the middle of the country that maybe watches MSNBC. And when I say middle of the country, I mean people that don't normally pay attention to what's going on in politics. So that's why he's there. And on top of that, you have someone like Chuck Todd who does not absorb new information. I mean, I did a video when AOC was on Chuck Todd's show, I think a few months ago. And basically, AOC dispelled the idea that the center of the country wants conservative policy. So there's always this idea that, oh, you have the left, and then you have the right, and then people in the center, you want to appeal to those people in the center by being more moderate. That's not the reality. The reality is politics right now is so far to the right that the Democratic Party right now is center right. And you have millions of people in the country, almost half of the country, not voting. They aren't engaged in politics. They are sitting on the couch or completely disengaged from politics because they don't have a party that actually speaks for them. They don't have politicians that actually speak for them. So when you have a politician out there that is fighting back against the powerful and fighting for them, then you can get those people out to vote for you. So the entire narrative around, oh, the center of the country, you have to be moderate, should have been completely exposed in 2016 when Hillary Clinton was the perfect centrist candidate and she lost to a clown. That right there should have showed people this is not the way to go. But instead, they keep pushing the same narrative. And even after AOC is on Chuck Todd's show explaining to his face that this entire myth of the center of the country, he does not absorb that information and learn from it because they are paid to push particular narratives. And Markos being on the channel or being on this show with Chuck Todd just helped to push that bullshit narrative.